We are back from Utah and the Burb did awesome. It dragged the Blazer all the way there, all the way back with very little drama. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about a little bit of the drama we did have, what I'm going to be changing, what I'm going to be adding, and what I am really stoked on. Because quite honestly, this thing kicks some serious butt and I am very fired up. So let's go get it. Merricks Garage. Okay, I have the Blazer on the trailer behind me. So the transmission went back in and seems to be working. So I am doing a trial run here with the Blazer up a pass near me to make sure that everything is good before we head out on full-size invasion. Okay, green light, gotta go. About 5 years ago, I came up with the idea of building the K30 Burb. Building a rig that could carry my whole family and gear, could tow a vehicle, would be safe, secure, reliable, powerful, and yeah, there it is. I did it. I built this thing, although I hadn't ever really tested it out with significant towing. The last time I towed something heavy was when I pulled that 91 Squarebody Suburban back from Bakersfield, and at that point the clutch was slipping so badly, I couldn't really even tell if the truck was working. So it is with not an insignificant amount of joy that I report the truck did fantastic. This was a test drive. I wanted to load it up with the full weight of the Blazer and the trailer and run it up the hill behind me to make sure that things didn't fall apart. You know, I was concerned about the torque from the Cummins being too much for the frame and just twisting the frame. I was worried about the hitch not being appropriate or the balance in the vehicle being off, so it was just a liability to drive. All of those things have been bouncing around my head for the last year. And quite honestly, they were still bouncing around my head on the drive out to Utah. I am super stoked to report that the truck did fantastic. It performed remarkably well. Yeah, we had a little bit of overheating, and, you know, the clutch slipped once or twice, but nothing that was not expected. So I got to report that this feels pretty good. Considering where I was a few weeks ago, completely defeated by this transmission and drivetrain, I consider Utah and back to be a win. Okay, I just rolled up the 154 behind Santa Barbara. Not a impressive grade or anything, but it's something to test out the transmission and the clutch. Towing heavy, and yeah, truck did great. It started to look hot. It always looks hot. The temperature gauge just goes bang bang all over the place. So I'm going to be installing a Dakota digital dash in there. Hopefully that will alleviate it. I just need to get the temperature sender and the gauges calibrated to each other. But yeah, really happy on how this thing looks. Looks like we're ready for Sand Hollow. It was 1 year ago that my family and I road tripped out to Moab for full-size invasion. We spent a night in Sand Hollow and then drove out the rest of the way. My family followed up in our Honda Pilot and I drove the Blazer. And then when we got back, I started building the Burb. And so 1 year later, here we are road tripping the Burb out to Sand Hollow for full-size invasion Sand Hollow. I took my youngest son with me, and what you're seeing here is video footage from a dash cam that was sent to me. I'll link to the specific model down below. Pretty impressed with this thing. It's a very high quality picture. It records a ton of data down in the bottom left-hand corner, so you can see where I am and how fast I'm going. And it produced this really pretty sweet picture of us just crossing the desert and passes of California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah to get out to Hurricane. It's about 500 miles. The truck pulled, I would guess, around 13 to 14 miles per gallon, fully loaded down, which isn't bad. The clutch did well. I did have one instance where it was slipping, and that was a really steep grade. It was a freeway on-ramp that I had to get up to speed on, and Yeah, with the AFC Live, the truck puts out some serious boost. It's not uncommon to see 30 pounds of boost. And so that Cummins engine can really lay it down. And as a result, I think occasionally the clutch is just going to slip. I just have to remind myself to stay out of the boost when I'm pulling heavy. But regardless of clutch issues and overheating and other things, we got there in one piece. The truck did great. Brakes worked well, trailer was easy to handle, and we had a wonderful time exploring Utah, checking out Zion, checking out Sand Hollow, and just hanging out with good friends again. There's a saying that I think is particularly relevant to this digital age. It is, watch a video, be entertained for 10 minutes. Subscribe to my channel, be entertained for a lifetime. What better value can you ask for? One simple click down there to subscribe to Merricks Garage and you will be entertained for a lifetime. So you've heard what worked. I'm sure you're curious as to what didn't work and what I need to change. So let's jump into that because there are some tasks that have to get done before I take it on another trip. The first of which is going to be fixing this axle placement. These are custom leaf springs from Off-Road Design. And they are backwards, which is why the wheel looks like it's sitting so far back in the wheel well, because it is. It's been relocated. It's being pushed back by an incorrect installation of these leaf springs. So that needs to be remedied. And unfortunately, when these leaf springs come out and get moved, it's going to push this axle forward. It's going to change the driveline, or the driveline length is going to need to be changed. And I'm hoping not, but potentially my perches might need to be cut and re-welded. But it ultimately is going to give me a better ride. You see, right now, it sits really, really low. You can see where there has been significant rubbing from the tires while this thing is loaded down. Moving that forward's gonna help, but also adding in the sway bars, not the sway bars, those are necessary too, but adding in the airbags that I have purchased is gonna be critical. When this thing is fully loaded, it squats a good, I would say, 4 inches. It didn't affect the ride too much. I was concerned that too much squatting was gonna leave me with a wandering feel. Too much tongue weight back here is going to tend to unload your front wheels, which is going to lead to vague steering. Too little tongue weight back here is going to make the trailer drive the truck and end up with swaying and wagging and other issues that are not good. I didn't experience any of that, just some heavy rubbing. But that's going to be fixed. It's just going to be a little bit of a process. I still have the factory cluster in the truck, and not a whole lot of it is working anymore. The fuel gauge does work, but that's not surprising because nothing has changed. The speedometer does no longer work because I don't have a VSS output for it. The engine temperature, who knows if that works? It is all over the place. I have seen that needle buried, and I've also seen it where that needle does not move for hours at a time. My oil pressure is always about 130 PSI, which isn't right. But the voltmeter's working. The tach works now that I added this one. And I've got a speedo down there that reads the GPS signal and gives me a speed reading. So all this stuff needs to be dealt with. I have a Dakota digital dash that's going to be getting installed. But right now, I have no idea whether I'm driving too fast, my engine's too hot, if my oil pressure's too low. I'm really kind of in the blind. And that is a problem because the gauge for the engine temperature, this one right here, it swings wildly. So I never really know if I am in the operating temperature or if I'm running too hot or too cold. It's kind of difficult to make a correct and accurate assessment of how the truck's doing if you don't know how it's doing. If you followed my channel at all, you know that I've had a lot of issues with radiators, particularly on the K30 Blazer. I went through about 7 Griffin radiator just before I finally threw in the towel and bought the cheapest radiator on Amazon that I could find. And this is it. It's a Spectra radiator that is, it's what Amazon recommends. It's what's spec'd for a Squarebody. And despite its small size, it has been working, although I think it might be overmatched by the Cummins. You see, this is just a single row, and it's not even as wide as the intercooler. So I do have a little bit of a concern that the engine's running hotter than it should, although every time I heat gun it, when I shoot I will put the laser right here and I'll get the temperature off the thermostat housing. It's never all that hot, but I do think that a larger radiator would do nothing but good things. And this right here, this is the Ford Windstar fans and shroud. Once again, cheap and easy off Amazon. You can kind of see how they work. I'm just using zip ties and a bunch of other cobbled things to get it to work with here. But it's not leaking. It's running decent. I just need to have some visibility as to what the engine is doing, because that is my biggest concern, is overheating this thing or oil pressure falling or something catastrophic happening and not having any visibility on it. I also spent quite a bit of time installing all new AC system. Well, that would be a new condenser, it would be a new evaporator, it would be a new compressor, but none of that got hooked up for this journey. And so it was hot, it was uncomfortable, and it is time to get the AC fixed. I'm on the fence between going with the vintage air system, but I'm this far along with this guy. You can see my AC compressors down there. The only thing I need to do is add in a condenser up front and then plumb everything and hook up a vacuum pump so that the whole system will work. But having AC in the truck is gonna be crucial if I'm ever gonna get my family back in this thing. You know, this trip almost didn't happen. The transmission and doubler and clutch all conspired to defeat me a few weeks ago. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, this is a major milestone. Probably one of my top 3 milestones on the channel. Getting the truck up and running, getting the diesel functioning, and towing my truck out of state for a meetup with a bunch of cool buddies. That's definitely a top 3. Needless to say, I'm fired up on this. I'm excited about what the potential opportunities lie ahead of me with it. I'm looking forward to getting some AC and airbags and really dialing it out so it is not only comfortable, practical, reliable, but it's also something my family doesn't mind spending a lot of time in. If you have not watched my videos when I was building this thing, I'm gonna link a playlist up here that's gonna have a bunch of videos in there showing how I built it, going into a little bit about my thought process behind it, and then showing you how I executed. We'll see you next week. Merricks Garage.